In other news, the number of people claiming unemployment benefits here in France rose to a record high in May, but the number who had no work at all actually dropped over the period. France began lifting lockdown measures on the 11th of May, which allowed many businesses to reopen and people to go back to work. Our business editor, Stephen Carroll, joins me now. Stephen, what more can you tell us?
Well, these are the monthly unemployment figures published by the Labour Ministry, and it's based on the number of people that are registered for unemployment benefits. So it's not the same as the unemployment rate. It tends to track more peaks and troughs than those 3 monthly unemployment rate figures. So to be clear, what's happened here is that as we saw lockdown measures being lifted, the number of people that had no work at all fell slightly, down 150,000, but instead they shifted to a different category under the system where they had some work but received some benefits as well. So overall, the number of people out of work in France rose to a record high of over 6.1 million, whereas the number of people that are full-time out of work fell slightly. So it's a bit of a shuffling around of the figures. It's actually the reverse of the trend that we saw between March and April, where people moved from having some work to having no work, and that had pushed that full-time unemployed figure to a record high for April. So what we're seeing here is some sort of rebalancing of the labour market. There are still a lot of people out there looking for jobs, a lot of people who work in occasional jobs that aren't getting much work, but we are seeing some reopening of the economy as lockdown measures were lifted, and that's what's being reflected in these figures. Now, the overall, what's not included in these figures are the number of people who are on a furlough scheme supported by the French government. That is around 7 million people at the moment. The government just announcing plans to extend that scheme. They're not counted as unemployed, though, as they're still employed by their employer. It's just the French government that's paying most of their salary.
All right, well, thanks for clearing things up for us, Stephen.